So we're going to do a little bit more of the changes in our existing database. Changing the structure because we want to make the data less prone to errors. And for example, error we might have here is we might have them accidentally type in the wrong service abbreviation. Suppose they double tap the T on the service abbreviation. Well, we can't do that there. Over here, in the old way we did it, I could come over here and type in the wrong service abbreviation, and it's not going to care. But if over here I want to choose, I can only choose one of those things in the boxes. I can't type in something that's not here. And this also allows me to do multiple things. So ensuring the integrity of our database is huge, and that's why when you go to some places, they instead of letting you type your zip code or type your state, you have to select from the states. That's for that very reason, that you don't put in a non-existent state when they're asking you to select a state. So remember how we did that. I went to the appointments table and I went to design view of it, and I added the service abbreviation using the lookup wizard when I set it up. And what that did for me is it put in these details here, but the wizard helped me do it. I didn't have to remember how to format data in the right place in the lookup settings. So I made a new entry and made it using the lookup wizard. So let's do, I think what they have us do a couple more just for practice. So I'm going to close my appointments table, and I haven't made any changes, so I'm going to say no, I don't want to save those changes. Let's go back to now. The next thing I want us to do is do something. I want to review that last thing we did. We did a calculated field in the veterinary vendors table. Let's just look at that just for review real quick. In the veterinary vendors field, here's the data, but under design view, click on the triangle, I made that the cost total amount field be a calculation. Quantity, square brackets, times, asterisk, cost in square brackets. So what you see here is going to be display the number, the quantity number times the cost currency. And going back to design view, then I will see, check my math, that my amount, quantity, is quantity times cost. Now right now my amount isn't being viewed with 2 decimal places. And remember, that's kind of irritating, especially if you're an accountant. So let's see if we can have these displayed in the proper formatting. And I'm going to play with this. I'm going to go back to design view. And for the total amount, let's see, what can I do for formatting? What choice do I have for format? Let's see here. Format currency in the total amount properties. Let's see if that makes a difference when I go to view the data. Saving that change. Now total amount has a nice accountant happy format. So all I did was, along with having the formula in there, quantity and square brackets times cost, I set the format to be, don't just give me any old format like general number, give me the currency format of that calculation, and that'll then show the results in nice currency format. That was the last thing we did, making a change to the veterinary vendors. A calculated field that's automatically calculated as soon as I enter or change the data. This automatically gets recalculated. And there is no query to show that, except if I open the veterinary vendors, I will see that extra column now, total amount. The times this is handy is, suppose it's a fancy calculation. every time I change data, it will keep this updated for me. But I know I can always calculate it in a query later on if this weren't there. So it just makes it a little more convenient. It's automatically calculated for me as I change the data, rather than calculate it when I do my query. Because remember that one query, we had a calculation in there, and it was doing it for us, calculating the vendor cost. Okay, veterinary vendors, we're done with that. Now we've been doing easy, safe things. Now we're going to do something very dangerous. It's called a mass change. And here's how we do it. We're going to make a query. Oh, I have to get my book refreshed here. We're going to do a query and then turn it into a mass change query. We're going to start with a, let's just see what would happen, and then we're going to turn it into an update query. So the query that we're going to make, I believe we're going to be setting some of the appointments. Let's see what we're going to make the change here. We're going to edit. We're going to make a query based on the veterinary vendors table. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. So veterinary vendors, I'm just going to go to create query design, create query design, and the table that I want to design my query on is the veterinary vendor. So I'm going to double click, and I'm going to close the add tables. I'm going to stretch this up a bit so I can see what fields I have. Now let's just pretend we're just running a query for now. And all we care about in the query is our product type. I double click product type. And if I just run the query, what do I see for product type? I see that so far all my vendors, well, 2 of my vendors have VAC as their product type, and the others have nothing in there. Now I could go one by one and update them, or, yeah.
It's acting up again.
Well, what do we do?
So
Reboot it.
Start, and if it doesn't let you.
And just push the button in, push the power button once. Right there. Yep, and once it shuts down, once that light goes off, just push it again. Okay, now just push it again. It's all right. Now this is a very simple query. We're just looking at the product type. I just put the product type in the column, the first field. Now here comes the dangerous part. I'm going to change this into an update query by clicking on the update icon right there. Now a new field shows up down below, an update to row. Notice with a select there is no update to. There's just, oh, show me this data, select the data. This is update the data, and I update my data to VAC. So this is very dangerous because there is no criteria. It's just basically telling Access, when I run this query, change the product type to VAC for all the veterinary vendors. So giving you troubles?
Yep, it won't turn back on. And it just has a little orange thing. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be blue.
That should be coming on blue for
And then
now.
it just pops up HDMI no signal.
Yeah.
Oh, now it's deciding to work.
Well, that's your, yeah, that's the PC starting to come up now. Yeah. There we go. So right now, this is the dangerous part. Notice there is no criteria. No matter what, it's going to make a change. It's going to update every product typed to VAC. It does give you a little bit warning. When you come over here and say run, click the run button, it gives you the warning, you're about to change 6 rows. And it gives you a scary warning, you can't undo this command to reverse the changes. And I'm going to go ahead and click yes. And now how do I know whether I made the change? Well, I can come up to my veterinary vendors table, see what's in there, and I should see that all the product types got changed to VAC, vaccination. That's how dangerous an update query is. Now, you could make it a little safer by saying in the criteria, let's see, I could put null there. Let's try null. If there's nothing there, that's what null means. That means it would update only those that are blank. The thing with queries though, even though I'm not making the change, oh, there it shows, yeah, hey, nothing's going to be changed. You're about to update 0 rows. This is a slightly safer update query because it's only updating those that are blank.
I'm sorry, the computer's giving me a problem. So I did product type here and it's saying I have to enter something else and it won't let me enter the other ones.
Well, don't do it that way. Just double click in the gray bar and delete that column. We'll let you. Click on table. Or yeah, it'll let you delete that. Okay, just double click up above. Up above. Up above. Keep going up. Keep going up. No, keep going up. Don't click until I say, okay? Hover over product type. You never added product type to your
I thought it was just a veterinary vendors table.
Yeah, and you don't have product type in your veterinary vendors table.
How would I add that?
Why would you not have product type in your veterinary vendor
I'm
table?
not sure.
Close that query. Don't save any changes. Design view. Down below, add the line product type. Go to the right side. Click on lookup wizard. Down at the bottom, go down to lookup wizard, and pull down. Down. Go click on the short text arrow
Okay.
and go down.
Oh, okay.
Next. Go back. Click on I will type in the values I want. Next. Type in VAC. And then arrow down. And SUB. Next. And finish. Okay. Now go to datasheet view, or actually you can actually close the veterinary vendors table. Now, new query. Query design. And the veterinary vendors table. Double click product type. And down there, now turn it into an update query
How do you do it?
at the top. See the word update.
Oh, just update, not update query.
And see how you got update 2 down below in your design view underneath your grid down here. Update 2, put VAC. And now click the run exclamation point upper left. Run exclamation point. And the reason this is dangerous is it's going to make changes to your data. So before you run those mass changes, you're going to make sure, check your IT person, do we have a backup? Because it's nothing you can undo. Because we do want to keep a record of what this update query does, we're going to save it. Control S, save the query. I mean, let's call it AC3-27. AC3-27. update to VAC. Now I did make mine a little safer with this criteria right there. That criteria makes it sort of safe that only set it to VAC where it is blank. That's what null means. That means there's nothing there, set it to blank. That's safer than having no criteria. But now if I close this, I will see that little update query in a special little category right there, the exclamation point warning you, hey, that's a dangerous query. So whenever you see queries like that, you can right-click design them to see what it's going to do before you actually run it. If you do want to run it, it will give you this warning. By the way, that you can't undo this. So if you're not sure that you want to make those changes, then you can just say, oh, no, I didn't mean it. I just want to see what's in there. So it does give you a little bit of a warning. But that's the power of queries in databases. You can make huge changes just by clicking a dangerous query. And that's why you pay those database people big money. For databases that are useful at all, then means if somebody messes with it, the usefulness is gone away. So you don't want someone that doesn't know what they're doing to change your database and make update queries. Okay, so we've started talking a little bit about the importance of keeping our data pure in databases. That's super critical. I can always go view my tables information, and right now I have complete control over erasing stuff, putting in the wrong data. But we want to have some little built-in protection of our data. So one thing we add to this is things we call validation rules. So let's practice this in our veterinary vendors table. So let's go back to our veterinary vendors, and we're going to right-click Design View on the veterinary vendors table. And each field in my veterinary, I'm going to close my top ribbon so I can see more. Each field, if I click on it, I'll see properties down below of each field. And you can see our field size is all ridiculously large. I'm not going to worry about that because that's not as big a deal. That's not the integrity of our data. That's just wasted space in our database. We want to make sure that they don't type in too long of a zip code. So change the field size after clicking on zip code. Change the field size property to 20. Just like we did when we in AC1, we were setting what is the limits of how much they could type. Now this isn't much validation, right? This is just saying you can't type too many characters. But of course they could put a completely invalid postal code in there still. We want to make sure that they do enter something in vendor name before they leave. So click on vendor name. And I don't think they're telling us to change the size of it, but we are going to change the required property from no to yes. I can double click and it'll toggle to yes. Now I cannot leave a vendor entry without it saying, without something being in that field. Yeah.
So I'm not sure why, but my table is not showing the same thing. It's only showing new values, format, caption, index, and text line. It's not showing all the other ones.
You have to click on the item to see the properties of each item.
It's not letting me. The text you entered is not even letting me.
You're in design view.
Yeah. Table design. I'm not sure what.
Well, you accidentally changed field size of ID to 1. You were not supposed to change the field size of ID to anything.
Okay.
It's field size of zip code. So Control Z. See if Control Z will let you undo the change you were trying to do. All right. Close the table. Ignore it. It's not saving any changes. And reopen it in Design View. Now go to Postal Code. You're in Design View right now. Click on Postal Code, Zip Code. Click on Zip Code. Now go Field Size for Zip Code. No. Field Size down below in Properties. 20.
Oh, okay.
And make it. And then we go to vendor name, click on vendor name, click on vendor name, and make that required. And that is then making sure they don't miss typing in a vendor name. Of course, it isn't checking that it's a proper vendor name. Now we're going to do something a little more specific. On the quantity field, click the quantity field. With that selected, we see that that's a number, and it has 2 decimal places. And here is our validation rule. We're going to add a little validation rule. It's going to say this. We're going to do greater than, that's the right arrow-ish thingy down above the period, greater than, and we're going to put 0, and then space, and the word and then a left arrow thingy above the comma, and an equal right next to it. So that's the less than or equal to 1,000. That is the mathematical validation rule. But we want to put something friendly to the person typing. If they type something wrong, we want it to not say something scary and meaningless like, your data entered does not follow the validation rule specified in the data properties. That would be confusing to anybody. You want to have it say, please enter a positive number less, how about 1,000 or less? 1,000 or less. And you could say it a different way if you like, if you think a different way is more meaningful, and make sure your spelling is correct so you don't look stupid. Positive number 1,000 or less. You could just say 1,000 or less, assuming that you would never have a negative quantity. And now, when I come back to datasheet view, let's see what happens if I try to enter a number. Now, here's a little warning, because the data in there may not obey these rules. It's going to give you a little warning. Hey, if something isn't there, I'm going to be deleting or shortening its size. I'm going to go ahead and click yes, and yes. And now let's try entering a invalid quantity like -50 for feline leukemia vaccine. Enter, click enter. Up pops my nice friendly little message instead of a scary Microsoft Access message. And let's try enter 5,000. I should get the same message. So this is keeping the integrity of my data proper by having validation rules. And this is a very simple validation rule. There's lots fancier validation rules, such as, hey, if they're entering a phone number, make sure it's in the exactly right format. Email, there's a whole book of how you write validation rules for emails, because they can be rather complicated. But making something required so they don't actually leave it blank, like the vendor name, you have to have a name there. It doesn't say it has to be a meaningful name. If you wanted even more careful validation, you'd have a list of valid vendor names and make them choose from that list. But we're not making you do that. Now, another way to do things is if they don't need to enter something, it's safer than having them type something. So on the product type, just to save them time and possibly typo problems, have the default value be set to equal VAC. So I'm just going to put in the default value. I'm going to type in VAC. And if I leave that, I think it will put a equal, it puts quotes around it. So the default value is VAC. Now let's see the effect of that by going to datasheet view, saving my changes. Whenever I come to a new vendor on that last line, see how VAC is already filled in for me, because that's my default value. So if we know most of our customers are in Dubuque, I could set my default value to be Dubuque for the state. So Any of these I can set a default value for. So far, they only want us to set us a default value for product type. Notice we haven't said that they have to specify a product type. So they could delete it and leave it blank because I didn't say required yes. But suppose I do want in the product type to have that not only have a default value but limit it to specific rules. So here's a fancier validation rule. Here's what I can put. I can put capital VAC or MC or SUP. And let's see if it puts quotes around for me. Yeah, it puts quotes around it for me. So I don't have to type the quotes. VAC or MC or SUP. Now, rather than have, let's just see what you get if you don't have a nice friendly validation text. VAC or MC or SUP. Watch what happens when I try to enter data without a validation text. So I'm going to try to enter a product type that's not in that list. So I'll enter VIC by accident. I enter it. There's the scary message. One or more values are prohibited by the vaccination rule, VAC or MC or SUP, set for the veterinary vendor's product type, enter the value expressed for the field concept. If you read it carefully, you might guess what they're saying, but it's scary and intimidating. That's just what those nerds at Microsoft love to do. They intimidate you with scary messages. Control Z lets me undo that change. Let's go fix that design so it makes a meaningful, human-friendly message of please enter VAC, comma, MC, or SUP. Always use the word please. Those nerds don't know how to say please, but they know how to construct scary messages that people either get scared by them or they completely ignore them, right? You just hit the OK without ever reading that message because it's so confusing. Did you ever hear the helicopter joke about Microsoft? There was a helicopter. Guys find a helicopter in Seattle. They're in the clouds. They can't see anything. They come to a building, and they see a person in the building, and they say, "Where are we?" The guy says, "You're in a helicopter." And from there, the guy knows exactly where he is. He says, "I know we're at Microsoft," because they gave a completely accurate but useless answer, and he knew he was at Microsoft. That's what nerds like to do. Yes.
So it's not letting me enter the VAC or MC. It says the expression contains an invalid syntax.
Are you in the validation rule?
I'm in product type. It was in validation rule, yeah, and it won't let me enter anything else.
So VAC and the word or and a space or, space MC, space or.
Yeah, there's a space. It's not letting me.
Let's take a look. Now remember, you don't have to enter the quotes.
Oh, I did. I thought I was supposed to.
No, it puts in the quotes for you.
It did. I don't think it did for me. So I had to do them manually.
And you did a single quote mixed with double quotes. Single quotes are not the same as double quotes. So just erase it.
And just do it without quotes.
Do it without quotes and let it put in the double quotes. I know it's kind of tiny up on the screen there. Those are double quotes. You'd think it wouldn't care. Single quotes or double quotes, but no, it just says invalid. Again, those Microsoft people, they don't help you. They just said invalid syntax, right? That's how they intimidate you. I think they have a class on how to write meaningless help messages to scare your users. Make it seem like you're smart, but they get intimidated, so they'll pay you money to do their work that you could have done if you just explained it. Now, remember, whenever you change the validation rule, it applies the validation rule to what's in there. So it will give you a scary message of, hey, you may be losing data because you've changed the validation rules. But if we have our validation rule correct, now if I try to enter something wrong, it gives a nice friendly message. Now it doesn't tell you, the one thing it doesn't do is fix, like say if you click OK, it doesn't change it back. You have to do Control Z or type in the right thing to get back to before you find out whether it's good data. So validation rules to keep the data pure. That's the rules for databases. And then in the book they explain all those scary messages. Now they'd like to make just a few changes, and looks like we're just editing the data at this time. Let's go, and they want us just to fix the data. In the veterinary vendors table, we have an error in the address of a vendor name Gaines. So the Gaines street address is wrong. So I have to stretch that column out. I'm going to do the double click on the border of the column to stretch it out. And we meant that to be 320 West Haven Boulevard. Now you have to know how to spell boulevard now. Whoever spells boulevard. I have always gotten, all my life I lived on Sioux Boulevard. We never spelled it out. We just spelled BLVD. But the correct spelling of boulevard is BOULEVARD. Just like Excel, I can just go right into the data table and make that change. That could have been a part AC1 exercise. Because we have no limits, there's no validation. And we already used the lookup tool to change, to choose our product type. Notice the product type, our update changed it all to VAC, but I do want this one to be microchip, so I can click and do the pull down MC. Now remember when we made this change, we allowed people to type in a value. So they could still type in a wrong value, but this is a little convenience. Choose from one of those three. But remember though, even though we let them type in, we do have a validation rule that if you type in the wrong thing, it will stop them. A better solution would be select from this list and don't let them type in. That is a choice that we could have done. And we've already used the multi-value lookup tool, so I'm skipping over that. We did that already. And just a few more things here. In the data sheet view, we would like to see something in the last column. Remember we added that last column that did the calculation. See how these columns have a total, have a 0 for the results. I would like to see a total row, even though I'm not running a query. I would like to see the total of my inventory. And in order to do that, I can turn on, let's see here, under the table I need to show where I'm looking for a totals button. Where is that totals button? Record group. There we go. I want to see totals right there. And look what I get. Oh, it's not showing me totals. Why isn't it showing me totals? Maybe I have to close it and open. Why isn't it showing? I have totals row on. What did I do wrong? Oh, something's going on. I'm supposed to be able to see the totals. Veterinary vendor, totals button, turn on, and oh, here. There we go. There we go. I want the sum. I forgot that it doesn't automatically choose the sum. When I turn on the totals row, see what happens? That little extra row gets added below the new record. I get a new row added, and now I have to tell it what I want to see in that. And I want to tell it, show me the sum of all those. I could do the same for these if I'd like, but it would be meaningless because it's a total sum together that gives me my total value of inventory. So, the usefulness of this. Someone has a database of your inventory with quantity times cost. And they say, well, I want the total of everything. Well, you could be smart and copy paste it into Excel and do your calculation and then the summation. Or you just say, you know what? You just turn on the totals row and tell Access, give me the sum of what you see in that column. Boom. You're hired. The other person that does it with Excel, well, they're pretty good, but you're the one that's going to be keeping your job if there's any layoffs. So little tricks you know with databases, the more you are familiar with how databases work, the more valuable an employee will be, even if you're not the database guru of the company. When the database guru talks and you understand something that they're saying, you will get their respect, and if you're their boss, you'll get their respect and they'll do what you want, knowing they can't fool you about what can be done with databases. And the main thing to ask about the database people, if you're not one of them or if you're working with them, ask them how often they do their backups. Where do they store their backups? Are they secure? You're not keeping private data in there, are you? If you are, we're going to get sued if someone ever steals our database. All right, let's see here. We have a few other modifications. This thing about showing grid lines, I don't think it's terribly useful, but we can select everything in our table just like Access, and I can come over here and decide to show grid lines. On or off. Yep.
It's not letting me, so for one I'm trying to delete the table and it's not letting me delete it. It says you must enter a value, but there's no value to put in. Or it's like the feline one, it's not letting me put it in. And it says you must put it in, but it's not letting. Oh, okay, now it's deciding to let me put it in.
See, it knew I was coming over to the computer.
I think it knows.
Yeah.
Why is that every time?
I don't know. So modifying the data, let's see here. Is there anything else they want us to do with this Access Project 3? Let's see, we've done data. We can messing with colors and grid lines in the font. I'm not sure that's terribly useful, but just to do some easy stuff, I can always select rows or select the entire table and then click in the upper left corner. And if I want to adjust colors of things in an alternate color here, let's see, looking at alternate, where are we looking? Here, I can adjust my alternate color if I like a coloring of my table here. So alternate color, and I get those colors. If I choose my main color, I'm not sure why coloring makes that big a deal. I suppose if you have a long lines, alternate colors is useful. Yeah.
It's acting up again.
Uh-oh, what's it doing now?
I'm not sure if I'm at the right table or what it is, because now it's not letting me enter. Okay, now it's working. I did something wrong and I'm so lost.
So this is just prettying up, just knowing you can color your tables. Remember, when you select everything, that means whatever you apply over here applies to your whole table. And let's see what else they want us to do. Some other formatting. I don't think I care about that. I want to do some more useful things here. Multi-valued fields. Oh, they're taking us back to queries now. Now that we've had a little rest from queries, we're going to write a few more. What's going on now?
It says you have to put a number, but I'm trying to get to product type because I think that's what you're doing. It's not letting me, and I'm not sure if I'm at the right table because I am lost.
Now, Control Z is your friend. When you have something like this, Control Z is your friend. Now,
Try it one more time.
what are you trying to do? Trying to see the totals row?
I'm not even sure. I was trying to get to that table, but honestly, I don't know. I'm so confused.
We're looking at the veterinary vendors table.
And that's where I am.
Yeah. And you do not have a total amount column. So let's go to design view and let's make a total amount. Home tab, design view. Let's add right click on product type and insert. Right click on product type, insert. Okay. Put total amount for the name here. Okay. And click on that and go down to calculated. And in there type square bracket, quantity. No, not the word square bracket. You want the square bracket character. Backspace. This is called the square bracket character right there. Cost. Type right oh, look, I put the right square bracket in for you. And then asterisk for times.
Oh, just multiplication.
And then left square bracket and quantity. And okay. Alright, now go back to data sheet view. And up above there in the records section, click on totals. Now look, a total row shows up. Go underneath total amount. In the gray, way at the bottom now. Way to the bottom. The bottom.
This one?
No, that's not the bottom. Next one down will be the bottom. See a little pull down. Sum. Now you're getting totals. Alright.
It's the
You're good. Just save it and close it. You're good. Now we're going to create a query. Back to a few more queries, and then we'll be done with this. And we might have time for one or two today here. Okay, so create, query design. And what do we want to do here? We want information about our appointments table. So let's click appointments. And the 4 columns we want from our appointments table. Double clicking on appointment ID, patient ID, appointment date, and treatment number. Now, what do we want to know about these? Well, right now, without any criteria, I'm going to see all my appointments. Okay, I see all my appointments because I have no criteria. But we want to go back to design view, and what do we want to do? We want to, in the treatment number, let's see what they're showing us here in the book here. Then the treatment number, oh, you know what? I think we want, let's add service abbreviation. I think they meant service abbreviation. And with service abbreviation, remember that was a special column that we had multiple pieces of it. And let's see, we want to type in, and we're going to do dot, let's see if this works. Let's do service abbreviation dot value. Now let's see what we get. Look at that. That shows us what we had put in for a service abbreviation. Yeah.
I never got a service abbreviation value on mine.
Don't worry about it. Now this is a little detail that I would say at your level of expected understanding of databases, they're kind of getting a little deep into when we have multi-valued fields and the service value. This is just showing you a little bit more that we can do when we have those special kinds of fields that allow multiple values. But that's what we can get if we want to see the service abbreviation. Remember, without the value, let's see what I get. I have them listed all on one line. But if I wanted to get at each specific service abbreviation, I could type dot value there, and now it will list each value on a separate line. So see how we're seeing the same thing 3 times with each different value that they chose. This may be useful in more complex queries, so I'm not expecting you to remember this part. That just shows you some fancy things you can do if you have a multi-valued field using that in a query. I think that's enough. That was a little brain exercise. Let's just save that last one, and let's see if we have a name for it. Yes, M03Q02. So I'm going to save this as M03Q02, the second query of Module 3. And that's on page AC 3-44. Don't worry about understanding why that's such a big deal. It has to do when we're processing the results of our query, rather than have to figure out what 3 things they typed here. Just give me a separate line for each thing that was different in the appointments. But basically giving you just some knowledge at navigating the query designer and how confusing it can be. All right, save that, and I think we might be able to finish up the rest of AC3 on Wednesday. And then we'll be doing exercises with the Bible database, just for practicing your skills. Yeah, we're almost done. We just have one more big concept coming.
Mr. Manning,
Uh-huh.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.